Now I'm going to take you to Moscow. We're going to listen to Sergei Lavrov, Russian Foreign Minister.
It has done this all these years, and this unites theoretical and political experience. And this is also the way to understand the most important foreign processes, especially at times like now. The Council now and the analytical discussions and materials, sometimes very sharp discussions, and all this helps us, and we take them into account in our foreign political activities. It's commonplace to say that this is a breakthrough time, and I agree with the experts, and Sergei Alexandrovich Karaganov and Fyodor Lukyanov wrote about this, and when they say that today, as in 17th and 1991, that we face a choice in our politics, and the foreign situation has changed radically, and they change every day, and deeper and broader and broader, and we can't jump higher, but we feel that it's deepening, and our country is changing together with these circumstances, and it makes its conclusions. The choice we're making now, it has already been made, and it's that the collective West has announced a total hybrid war on us. It's difficult to forecast how long this all will last, but it's clear that the consequences will be felt by everybody without exception. We've done everything to avoid a direct clash, but the challenge has been thrown to us. We accept it. We're not new to sanctions. We've always been under sanctions. What surprises is the caveman's Russophobia explosion, which we witnessed in all the civilized, so-called civilized countries. The political correctness, any decency, any rules, and also legal norms have been thrown away. The cancel culture against everything Russian is being implemented, and all hostile actions against our country, including theft. Our cultural activists, sportsmen, scientists, businessmen, just Russians are being robbed. This company hasn't spared our diplomats. They often have to work in extreme circumstances, and sometimes with risk to life and health. Even in the darkest times of the Cold War, didn't see such a synchronous expulsion of diplomats. We don't remember that. Of course, this destroys the general atmosphere in relations with the West, but at the same time, it releases and frees forces and resources, human resources, to work in the areas which can be used to develop the future of our country. We have conscientiously conducted our professional responsibilities fully. They couldn't find traitors among diplomats. There were such attempts abroad and inside the country. We are doing everything we can to defend the rights and interests of our citizens abroad. When a historical reaction from the West began at the beginning of the special military operation, when all aviation flights were cancelled, we provided help to our citizens who were abroad. We helped them to return home. And of course, the current issues are still valid, especially to do with the consular services to Russians. Of course, the situation made it necessary to transfer our diplomatic services to an extreme mode of operation, and especially in the area of defending our national interests. Of course, everything doesn't just concern Ukraine. Ukraine is an instrument, a tool to contain Russia's peaceful development, and this is all to promote a one-polar world. The Americans started to plan this course since the end of the Cold War to establish their global hegemony, and the expansion to the east was part of this course. We tried to convince them for a long time why this was not good. We were flexible, and we were ready to meet them halfway and to look for compromise. That was all in vain, and our president reminded this in his speech on the 9th of May on Red Square. And Now the West is opposing Russia to the last Ukrainian, especially the United States, which is conducting these processes from beyond the ocean, and they're also weakening Europe and preparing the market for their own goods and services. And of course, the situation has several layers. Russia, the United States, and China, we all understand that the issue is at stake, whether the world will be just, democratic, and multipolar. So this is a small, whether this small group of countries will be able to impose the colonial division of the world to the those who can and those who cannot. And we have already spoken about this. This concept of the so-called rule-based order has been implemented for many years. Nobody approved this order, but it's being imposed on the world community. And I will quote the U.S. finance minister. She said recently, and I quote, "The creation of a new system has to be start with the definition of the values of liberal democracy. The United States will support supply chains involving only those countries which respect moral values and behavior norms." End of quote. Of course, you understand what this means. This is all to do with the dollar, and only those should be admitted to this dollar system if they agree with these American rules, and those who don't will be punished. Not just Russia, but everybody who can pursue independent policies will be under attack. Just look at the Pacific strategy promoted by Washington, and which pursues the aim to include India and reliably and firmly into the American and NATO fold. As for the Monroe Doctrine, the United States dictates the Latin America how to live. But the question is, can the Americans now pursue in reality that the doctrine that the United Nations are based on equality of nations? The rule-based order doesn't include plurality and other principles, but it's all to do with the obedience to Washington's dictate, and they don't take prisoners. The European Union loses its principles of independence, and it just joins the Anglo-Saxon plans to promote this one-polar world order, and it risks the quality of life of the Europeans and their native interest to please the United States. Just remember how in December 2013, Victoria Nuland, during in a conversation with the U.S. ambassador in Kiev during the Maidan events, when she defined the place of the EU in Washington's plans to reformat Ukraine, and this prediction has come true fully. At the same time, the EU in security issues has gradually been merging with NATO. It subjugates to NATO, and NATO announces its global ambitions. What kind of defense alliance is that when they say that the NATO's expansion is a defense process, but that it doesn't threaten anybody? If you listen to Stoltenberg or the Americans or the Brits, the line of defense that went through the Berlin Wall, the real and the imaginary ones between the two blocks, it has already moved twice to the east. And they say now, Stoltenberg through the mouths of Liz Truss and others, that NATO has a global responsibility for solving security issues, and first of all in the Pacific region. So the line of defense, they want to move it to the area of the southern Chinese Sea. So the idea that NATO as an vanguard of world democracy should include this policy, and the dominant governance of global economy should be covered by G7, which will be which will invite some obedient nations from time to time. Of course, Western politicians should understand that their efforts to isolate our country are in vain. Many experts understand this now, and they recognize it now, and not publicly, but behind the scenes. This happens. And outside the West, there's an understanding that the world becomes more diverse. You can't avoid this. And more and more countries try to achieve a real freedom. They take part in integration processes and projects. More and more Asian and Latin American countries are not prepared to risk their national interests to please international monopolies. And many of our partners who felt the West's colonial habits, they don't join these sanctions. The West, which in our president's statement became an empire of lies, is not perceived now as a world of ideals. They steal other people's assets. They have lost their reputation as reliable partners. Nobody is safe from expropriation and state piracy, and not just Russia, but other countries don't want to be dependent on the US dollar and technologies. And I think that in future, the world economy will be de-Americanized. As Mr. Lukyanov wrote in the newspaper Kommersant recently, that the West has stopped listening to us. This happened long before the start of the special military operation. And his article also says that the radical reorientation of assets from the West is quite necessary. I remember that this philosophy, this course, was promoted by Sergei Karaganov for many years, and many now clearly understand this process has started, and it wasn't our desire. We were always open to dialogue, but this happened through our Western partners' behavior, which acted and which cancelled Russia from their partnership. So this is an unavoidable process, and it's a mutual process. Russian-Chinese relations become deeper and deeper. Privileged partnership with India, strategic partnership with Algeria and Egypt. Relations with the Gulf countries are reaching new levels. The same with the association of countries of the Southeast Asia and other countries in the Pacific region, in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, Latin America. We understand that at this watershed period, this is an adjective. I want to use this. This moment defines Russia's place in the future world order. We see Russia diplomacy's task as to reflect hostile actions against us, but also to patiently and calmly, but fast work on defending our positions, to promote our country's development and improve our citizens' quality of life. Thus, there is a lot to do. We're always busy, but in this situation, of course, we're seriously changing the mentality of our comrades in all the areas of Russia's life, and especially at such stages, and its meetings are very important under the umbrella of the Council for Foreign and Defense Policy, which has been generating ideas for a long time, which feeds also our foreign policies in part. Thank you, Mr. Lavrov. I thank representatives of the audiovisual information means, as always.
That was the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, effectively painting the position of Russia as a victim of Western aggression, says the West has declared a hybrid war against us and that efforts to isolate Russia will be in vain. As warned about, he was warning as well about overexpansion via NATO in the east. Of course, very pertinent given that we have just learnt that the Finnish Prime Minister has had a telephone call with President Putin today to tell him that they will be applying in the next few days to accede to NATO. He talked a lot about the hegemony of the United States and saying that they had imposed a rule-based order on the world without any other kind of agreement, and talked about the hostile environment for Russians abroad. All of that there by Sergei Lavrov, the Russian Foreign Minister, speaking a few moments ago in Moscow.